Hey everyone, welcome back to Engines and Idiots, our YouTube channel where we talk about the wide world of cars, automotive sports, and our very own passion projects and builds. I am Mr. SN95, also the owner of 2 Classy, our resident '06 CLS 55 AMG. You may have seen me on a couple of the videos on the channel so far. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to my good friends here, Imad and Shaf, so they can introduce themselves to you.
Hey, I'm Imad. You guys might have seen my McLaren 720S build that I'm currently doing. Yeah, no, I don't have a car.
You're not doing anything. You got a little Ultima.
I got an Ultima, man. It's pretty embarrassing as a car guy just driving around like a shitty 2.5 liter Ultima. Like it's depressing.
Did you say 2.5 cylinder? You said 2.5 cylinder.
2.5. Dude, you got the half cylinder there, man. You got the half
double
cylinder.
Embarrassment.
You know exactly what I'm talking. Dude, come on. You don't have half cylinders. I'm a rotary guy. We got half rotors. You know what I mean?
No.
It's not a thing. I'm kidding.
No, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, no, I'm not really doing anything with cars right now. I was a part of Engines and Idiots way before like we actually started making real content. You know, I used to make content where I would just like, I didn't even have a good mic. I just like grab my phone, I put it in front of my face, and I would just talk about like cars. Like, oh, this is a good car to buy. This is a cheap supercar. It was never good, but
He was the one that actually made all the cringy best 5 supercars you can buy videos.
hey, as far as I'm concerned, those had 37,000 views.
As far as I'm concerned, they're unlisted now.
You piece of shit. I'm kidding. No, but yeah, I mean, after we got the whole team together, like we've been pumping out really good content now, and I'm really happy with the pace that we're going at, and I think launching a podcast was a really good step for us. So
Yeah, this should be fun. We finally got around to the podcast. I bought this microphone.
We bought this microphone
14 months ago. Yeah, 14
almost 14 months. You checked? Oh my god.
Yeah. Anyway, Shaf, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I was waiting for my turn, which came a little later.
Well, you
than
didn't
I
raise your hand.
anticipated. Well, this is an audio podcast. I didn't think that was feasible. And I didn't want to interrupt because that's rude. But hello, everyone. My name is Shaf, and I am a proud employee, office manager of Upland Automotive at Upland Auto on Instagram and Upland Automotive on Facebook. Please follow and like us. Like our pictures. This isn't YouTube. But yeah, I also deal used cars at Upland Automotive. I'm in charge of our inventory, as well as overseeing just the day-to-day operations at Upland Automotive and assisting in any and all ways I can at an independent automotive repair shop. As far as being a car guy, I never really considered myself a car guy until I started spending the years at Upland Automotive. It is a family business in my father's shop, so my involvement there was kind of like an arranged marriage where I grew to love it, even though I initially was not that crazy about cars. But you know, here I am. It's fruitful. I'm enjoying it. I'm on a podcast with these two guys, trying to educate them on what's happening on the ground, what's happening with the day-to-day consumer, what's happening with you, the listener, what's going on in the automotive sphere.
He's our people person.
I try to be. I sell used cars for a living. I'm a pariah to most people, man. But anywho, I'm here.
If you know what I mean.
I don't know what you mean unless it's like
Neither
a
do I. I just
sadistic,
kinda said that.
masochistic way. But you know, it's okay because it's 2021 and car guys can be into that gay kinky shit. But hey, here we are.
Nice.
Yes.
Well,
it's a pleasure to be here, boys.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for us to all be here after 14 long months of not doing anything.
This thing was literally collecting dust. It was not even kidding. It was collecting dust, and I was so pissed at these two because I'm not a techie podcast guy, as they know. And like, Asan was like, "Yeah, bro, you should totally get the Scarlet stuff. It's totally awesome. And we're gonna start doing podcasts." And I like made a space in my room.
That was 7 months ago.
Super
for
sick.
everyone who's wondering.
And then the next thing is that I was like, okay, what's our next podcast? I'm excited. I've done some research, and they're like, yeah, about that school. And now here we are. So it's been a long time coming, and I think I can speak on all of our behalfs where we're happy to be here and in front of you, or in front of your ears, whispering sweet nothings about the automotive world.
Let's get right into this. Yeah, let's get into it. So I kind of want to start here. Yesterday or day before, I happened to have a CLS, so this is of some interest to me. So Mercedes released news of their new 2022 CLS model. I had sent this in Instagram to our private chat earlier, where Imad and I were able to talk a little bit about design language of that car. And one thing I had said was that this is differing a little bit from the C218 that had kind of come out in the mid 2010s. That was a very muscular CLS compared to the W219 that I have, which was a very classy, svelte-looking car. And I felt like this new one that we currently have, the side profile looked similar to the 219. But then the disappointment set in, because I realized they no longer have a 63 AMG model. They had a 53 AMG model, which they're also removing from the lineup. And in 2022, there's no longer a rear-wheel drive version. There's just the all-wheel drive CLS 450, which kind of sucks. I mean, like, there's no 53, even though that was like a downgrade from the 63, and you basically get a 3-liter inline 6 with a hybrid system. I think it makes like 360 horsepower, and you have to get the E53 if you still want the AMG variant with 400-ish horsepower. I mean, like, I know inevitably this was coming, but at the same time, like, outside of that side profile, the power, and how, I don't know if you guys chime in. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like the A-Class and the CLA class.
Dude, the rear looks the same.
Yeah.
Is it just me?
They look
The
like
rear
baby
looks the
versions.
exact same. It's the exact same rear, just pasted on there. And I was like, oh no, this isn't special.
I feel like Mercedes, they've lost their prestige.
This isn't special.
I mean, the interior is gorgeous. I'm not gonna.
Oh yeah, 100%, no doubt.
But
so is the CLAs. The CLAs are good too.
I don't know what
So,
they're
like, I
doing
mean-
over there. I feel like the designers are just sitting up in a room. They like make the biggest car possible, and they just keep chopping inches off like the wheelbase and make a new model.
They just look at the CLA. They're like, what can we change? Yeah, you can change
Why do they have an Indian
Nothing.
accent?
nothing. No, I don't know why I did it Indian. They're not Indian.
They're
I
German.
don't know, man. I did it. I switched it to German at the end, but in the beginning it was Indian. I'm not gonna lie.
Nope, you just sounded like an idiot.
Yeah, that's what we're called, Engines and Idiots.
Hey, damn
What can I
right.
say? Damn right.
Actually, I think we're called engines and idiots because we do idiotic things with engines. But I think you're just an idiot.
Hey, we can't talk about that shit that we did in Mexico, man.
What did
What?
we do? What?
What?
is he
I
talking
don't
about?
know what you're talking about.
I
By
don't know what you're
Mexico,
talking
do you
about, man.
mean the movement of manufacturing of American vehicles to Mexico? Yeah,
No.
that shit we should talk about. That shit we should talk about. We need to bring those cars back
You
to
don't know enough
America,
about like
dude.
the other side of the car community. There's no joke. There's no fun in this then. But it's fine. It's fine. Jokes aside, though, like it's pretty depressing to see like what Mercedes is doing with their engines. I get the sentiment of moving over to EVs or moving over to hybrids at least, but I think, and I do see there being a performance gain, and I understand that they wouldn't have
Do
done
you
this unless
really?
it was a performance gain.
Do
Well,
you really
speaking
see
of
the
which, I
performance
have
gain
some
in a
other news
hybrid?
about like the new C63 AMG is actually losing its V8 in place of the M139 engine, which is found in the ones I mentioned before, the GLA, the A, the CLA. But those make 375 horsepower and 354 foot-pound torque. This new C63 apparently is rumored to not only be longitudinally mount as opposed to transversely mounted, it also has an electric turbocharger which helps it make 740 foot-pound of torque.
Jesus.
That's an
Like I was
inline
saying.
4 that makes 740 foot-pound of torque.
Even though the CLS is going hybrid, I understand that there is a performance gain. There's a reason they're doing it, but it's still pretty sad to see the loss of the V8. Like,
yeah, you're gonna lose
who
that
was there?
sound, right? The feeling.
Who was there doing the V8? It's just Lexus.
Lexus,
Mercedes?
yeah.
Dude,
Mercedes
Lexus
at the
is holding
higher
it
end of the
down.
trim.
Now they're
I
gone.
feel like-
Now they're gone. It's just Lexus.
I feel like Lexus is really
in
holding
America.
it down in
In
terms
America,
of
yeah,
the
but,
V8s.
I mean, you can't really compare those.
It really is just Dodge, right? Well, actually, it's
Yeah.
not even Dodge. And like, what happened? We're kind of late on this, but didn't Stellantis come through and just kind of axe the entire SRT division?
Well, right after he made an SRT minivan, so
That's great.
like, I mean, yeah, I heard that. I heard they axed the entire. SRT
Speaking
division.
of Lexus, since we're bringing that up, we're going back over there, other side of the Pacific to Japan. Toyota
Mhm.
with that GR86 and the BRZ with Subaru.
I gotta
You got
say,
anything about that?
dude. All right, as a JDM guy here, I'm excited. I get it's not making much horsepower as much as horsepower as it was before, and people are disappointed about that.
Yeah,
I know
it's
a
making
lot of people
more,
wanted
right?
to see, it is making more, but it's not as much as like people wanted. Let
I
me
see what you're
rephrase
saying.
that. Yeah,
Oh.
people wanted to see like a 60, 70, 100 horsepower gain, comparable with like a Mustang or something. But that's not. I don't think that's the point of the 86. The 86 is more of just a platform to work on, and not just that, but I don't think it was ever about power. Like, if you see the moves that Toyota's been making in the past, like if you look at the Z4 is a beast. When you look at the Supra is also a beast. But if you look at what Toyota did with the Supra, it's different. In every feasible way possible on the track, not including straight lines, the Supra's faster. Toyota's focused heavily on steering, suspension, and handling, and rigidity specifically.
I think Toyota has nailed the mark as to what a purist is looking for in a racing vehicle or a driving machine. Lightweight, solid, well-balanced engine, the offering of a 6-speed manual transmission, and rear-wheel drive.
What more could you want? Like, that's honestly, like, when you describe it like that, it just sounds like the perfect car. The perfect car for the average person to just drive around and enjoy and feel like they're a part of something that could be more and that has the potential to be more. I don't know. I saw it and I really like that car.
The GR86 and everything is like the alternative to the Miata if you don't want the Miata.
100% agree.
Our other friend.
100% agree.
Moment.
Yeah.
Swole House. Where's he at?
I don't know.
But I agree.
No, but seriously, I agree.
Looks are different.
Here's my criticism. Here's my criticism. I think you can chime in on this. I like the previous generation better, and I used to rip on it all the time, and I take it back. I don't feel like, I don't know what happened. It's not as bad as like BMW, what they did with the M3 and the M4.
Oh yeah.
But as far as like even in terms of differentiation, if you hold the GR86 next to the BRZ from the rear end, it's identical. Even the press photos, one was red and one was blue. Like, otherwise, if they didn't have the badge on them, I wouldn't have known which came from which.
There is some inspiration in the BRZ from, in my mind at least. I can see the front bumper having similarities to like the MP412C, but otherwise there is a bit. The only difference is literally the front bumpers and the badge. There's no other difference. I mean, there is. I mean,
they didn't even try. I mean, they didn't try.
Physically at least.
And I feel like the Toyota might be the more fun version.
Yeah, it's making more power too, and it's supposed to have better handling. So
it's interesting. And I mean, I do also have to appreciate that they stepped up from a 2-liter to a 2.4 liter in an age where everyone's trying to downsize. Even going up 0.4 liters in your displacement, it's still going up. So, and without adding a turbocharger.
It's just sad that like this is what we're getting. Like, I mean, let me rephrase that. It's sad that Toyota is like the last company to be out there making real track-based rear-wheel drive cars, in a price range that people can afford.
That's the caveat you get at. It's the affordable
Toyota's the
price
only
range.
One.
Yeah,
because
you can bring up Porsche.
Always made like revolutionary and just great overall cars. The LS in the 90s was a great car, especially in the United States when that got introduced. We have a 99 car. We have a 99 LS 400 that my dad drives. He's not giving up that car. That car's rear-wheel drive.
Never forget the Land Cruiser.
V8. I mean, Land Cruiser, come on.
Of course. Supras.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I know what they were going for with this iteration of the BRZ and the GR86.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like if they're to become the guardians of this like last stretch of enjoying your purest vehicle, I feel like they could have done a little bit more in terms of design. I don't even care about the power. I don't feel like it's lacking for what it is. Because people will build it up if they want more power. I just feel like design could have been better. It could have been more inspirational for a time where design and fashion and food and travel and all this other stuff has.
Wait, are you talking about the GR86 or the BRZ?
Yeah, both. I mean, they look like they're twins, right?
The same car.
I feel like they could have put a little bit more effort into it.
I feel like it's perfect, honestly. I like the look of the car.
Really?
I actually showed it to... I honestly like the look of the car. It was very simple, and it's sleek. It looks nice. I mean, like you said, from the bumper, I think I like it. It's simple. It's all you need. It's all you need.
I think I think there's two camps. There's the camp that likes it a lot, or likes it more at least.
100%.
And then there's the other camp, like Eston said, where it's kind of like the Star Wars prequels, where you're like, this isn't good, and then you realize, oh, neither are the new ones, but the old ones weren't that bad. I think it's like for some people, it's like the Star Wars prequels. For me, I can see the appeal. I like the old one more.
I think stylized. I can mechanically see the appeal, and like while we're on 100%. This kind of mechanical things working, but design maybe not. So and so, it's not on our roster to talk about, but I think we should talk about it. I think we should talk about
what they say,
the
like,
M3 and the
the
M4.
Streets, haram in the sheets. Like it's probably amazing on the track.
What?
Whether or not I'm a fan of the looks.
This can be applied to the BMW.
I agree.
That
Actually,
M3
I don't know.
and the
BMW's
M4.
kinda like
No, dude. Look, I've seen those in person now. Okay, I've been able to open the door of one and see inside of it, and they have. Yeah, I am. Thank you, but they nailed it. It's like one of the best sports cars interiors I've ever seen. It's driver oriented. The material, the craftsmanship is beautiful. Even from the rear, the car looks like sporty. It's special. Mechanically, I haven't driven one. Mechanically, I'm assured that it's probably like better than the last generation, which is a really hard feat to top after the special track editions and the California editions and all that not the California, sorry, the competition sport packages came out. That's hard to beat. And this whole like 85% of the way there kind of package, and then you get to the front of the fucking car and you're like, geez, what did they do? Buck teeth. It looks like a beaver.
It looks like a pig. Like the
oh my god.
It's ugly. Oh, by the way, I think we are going to be overlaying images here. So
no, we're going to have to. Yeah.
We have to. Yeah, I'll be doing that. Don't worry about that. But yeah,
every time I've seen one on the road with that grill, I don't know. I actually get disappointed because I feel like the F80 series that came before was probably one of the best looking M generations ever. Mm-hmm. And what really irks me is that you go up one iteration to the M5, the new one looks so good. Like,
I love the M8.
Like, how could you not apply the same design principles to these very beloved and very popular cars? And that's what I'm getting with the GR86 and the PRZ.
I see that.
I feel like they could have looked better if they were going to become the last safeguards of this kind of purist formula. I feel like the look should have matched what the symbolic nature of the vehicle is.
But again, I don't think they should be like striving to be that. I think Toyota should strive to make the cars that they feel like. And again,
I think they accidentally fell into that.
He likes the way it looks, and if buyers like the way it looks, then like
to each his own, right? Shop's taste is shit, but that's not my problem.
Yeah, shit. Okay, man.
I wouldn't call it shit. I'd call it
refined.
No, I'd call it
garbage.
I'm a simple man. A simple man. I see a simple looking car.
Shop isn't the type of person to get a sports car, but I think if he would, it'd be the 86.
You are 1,000% correct.
Yeah, like
really?
it's
if I were to buy a sports car, and I've actually thought about this before the GR86 was announced, I kind of wanted the Corvette Stingray.
That's exactly what I was gonna get at.
Because I just feel like it's a perfect flex car, and I don't know, man, like it's just a sleek car. But the GR86,
well, bang for a buck, you get the most performance out of that platform anyway. I mean, like no one else is offering that much speed for the price.
Big Chevy guy. I love the Chevy, like the trucks, their SUVs, the Suburban, the Tahoe, the Trailblazer, the new iteration of the Blazer.
We should put him in a Corvette.
Didn't you have
Corvette?
Silverado at one point, or what truck did you have at one point?
Fuck yeah, man! 2005 Chevy Silverado, black exterior, interior was gray. Yeah, that's.
I remember that thing. That was way back in the day.
That was so long ago. I was still learning how to drive at that point, and like I remember I was like, I still get confused when I park and how far away from I am from the curb when parking. And Schaff said, just drive until your tires hit the curb. I'm like, dude, I don't have a truck. This isn't an option for me, man.
Hennessy Camaro.
Okay, to be fair,
Shout
we're
out
swerving
Nadeem.
through traffic.
I think
Just
you just beat
because
the driver of the
I think
car.
I'm just a better driver than Nadeem is. If
Who
he's
is
listening,
Oh boy.
I don't think you beat him in the RS3 though. Actually, no,
No.
you probably would. If it's just as much traffic, you probably would.
Speaking of
I'm
the
a
RS3,
good driver.
Yes.
I think, okay, first and foremost, all respect to Audi for that car. Because,
Oh, yeah.
wow. I crapped on it a couple years ago because I thought the price was a little bit astronomical for its size. But now that I've seen its potential, I take it all back. I kind of want one. But here's what astonished me the most about Nadeem's RS3, because we had the opportunity to run it back-to-back with the CLS. And both are stock right now, right? They're bone stock.
Mhm.
They were even on the highway. And this is a car that makes significantly less torque than mine. And for it to keep up just because of its lightweightedness and how it's like geared and everything, dude, that thing is that's an engineering marvel, a modern engineering marvel from Audi. That 5-cylinder is precious.
I agree. I'm not an Audi person. I'm not a German person, but yeah, I mean, it's an amazing car.
That's the
But
pinnacle of tuning. That's the pinnacle of tuning in 2020, 2021. I mean, have you seen
It
what
does
they've
have
been
its
doing with
faults,
those
though.
things?
I mean, oh yeah, no. Aftermarket.
All cars have their faults, sure, but
like manual seats. But I'm kidding. It's a joke. But yeah, no, yeah.
I mean, at that point, you
aftermarket
could rip on Porsche for having their 911R. It's all manual. There's no padding or
Okay,
anything.
but to
There's
be
no
fair, like that's a race car. With the RS3, it's like here's manual seats for weight saving, but also here's like the entire mechanical mechanisms for a sunroof. Just like was there a trade-off? I would much rather have automatic seats than a sun. Like what?
Sunroof.
Like,
No, I agree.
just get rid of the sunroof, and yeah, then it's
That's
then, yeah, I
Audi,
understand,
man.
but-
Worst
Alright, we're at the,
engineered cars ever.
Are you serious?
I'm
From a
stepping out of this.
mechanical
I'm not gonna say
standpoint,
anything. I want to hear
From a
this.
mechanical standpoint, they're just, I don't know what those fucking Germans are smoking to make them think to bury every part of the car under the engine. But man,
Are you
It's a
is
bitch.
this specifically like for like older Audis coming up to like 2012, or have you noticed like newer Audis doing this too?
newer Audis are like that. They'll bury them. They'll bury everything. Dude, everyone's burying it. I don't know what this obsession is with confining
Packaging.
the engine
Yeah.
bay space. Yeah, it's just like it's hard to reach. It's going to increase labor hours. You know, I'm sure the dealer's going to be giving out crazy warranties for that type of thing, but man, it's turning into a bitch to work on. You know, and it was a thing, like, it was pretty common, like, to where some of, like, the older, European cars were a little bit more difficult. Mercedes-Benz was a little bit better about this, I feel like, where you could still access everything, other than the fucking battery that they decided to put under the back seat, but that's a conversation for another
Under the
day.
back seat? What?
Yeah, on
Dude,
some
it's
models.
underneath the back seat. We have an
Why?
E320 2001.
Just
to get to the
Wait,
battery.
how do you
have
access
to-
it then? How do you
you
access
take the
it?
back
go to
seat
the,
off.
you go to the back
take
seat.
the back seat
you
off?
back seat off, and you access the battery. Yup, 100%. And
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, this isn't that uncommon. My Cadillac had like 2 of the fuse boxes underneath the back seat. I had to remove it to access.
okay,
That's
it.
but
a
a
fuse
fuse box,
box, not a
is
battery.
different. A battery is. If you're stranded on the road, you're not looking for that
Yeah.
fuse box. You're looking for that fucking
That's
battery.
true,
You can
that's
stick on
true.
the back seat.
I mean, my
bitch.
my AMG has 2 batteries. It has the I think it has the auxiliary battery in the
Yes.
front, and I think it has a main
Yes.
battery in the trunk.
Trunk batteries are fine. It's
It's
just why
under the seat.
Is in the engine bay, which is accessible. And sometimes we've changed a few auxiliary batteries, but they haven't been like, at least in my experience, I haven't seen them be like the reasons people have like not been.
Yeah,
No.
no, you're right. Yeah.
And as far as fuse boxes go, dude, people put fuse boxes in all types of weird fucking places. Like they'll put them next to on the left side of the steering wheel where the OBD is. They'll put a fuse box over there. They'll put it under the hood. They'll put it
Mhm.
under the sometimes they're in like, like what you said, with the Cadillac under the seat. But
Let me see how many fuse boxes I have. Because you guys are gonna lose it with this, but
Let's hear the typing porn. What keyword you got?
I've got 3 main fuse boxes and 2 pre-fuse boxes. So I have one in the trunk, I have one under the passenger footwell, the driver's side by the steering wheel, and I have one, I think, in the back seat, and I have one in the engine bay.
How many body computers does your car have?
It doesn't actually have that many freaking body computers. I think a lot of it was to regulate the air suspension that I ripped out, because a lot of it was like weight sensors and stuff to like lift the suspension based off of how many passengers or if you're going over a hill or something. Like, I don't care, so I mean I ripped all those components out, so I mean kind of the computers are obsolete at this point. But yeah, finding stuff means flipping through like a 10-page fuse box diagram.
I'm sure that's fun.
Oh yeah, it's
How do they separate them? Like, how do they separate them? Like, what components are on which fuse box?
I think a lot of the stuff that's like internal electrical was like in the pre-fuse boxes in the trunk or under the seat. A lot of the mechanical stuff was under the hood or under the footwell.
Okay, so it's like pretty relative.
It's very relative. It's okay. I think with my age AMG, like with that M113K platform, I'm in that era where things are analog enough that you could DIY that kind of car if you knew what you were doing. There was a lot of talk back in like 2010 to 2013 of people buying used E55s or something, and you'd hear a guy say, "Oh, I wouldn't touch that with a stick without a warranty," or something like that. And then time went on, and the engine just kind of proved itself to like be reliable, and they've kind of taken that kind of sentiment back.
The Europeans have bulletproof engines. The Europeans have bulletproof fucking engines, dude. That's the one thing you can't even say about American cars. Like a lot of the Fords that have like intake problems and whatnot.
Head gaskets
dude, those
and
fucking
stuff.
head gaskets are gone. Well, and intake problems too. Like a lot of the Fords have issues with intakes, and those cars are struggling. A lot of new Toyota motors are like that too, and like Sequoias and whatnot. Like God, what year was that Sequoia? I think 2014, 2013. We had to replace like the air pumps in it, and they were like inside the engine, and that was a bitch to get to.
Yeah, it's a bit complicated, huh?
Oh, I want to like divert the conversation, but someone just spied the new Nissan Z, with the blue interior. I want to see this. It looks really good.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Let's take a look. I'll drop it in Discord real quick.
Usually, whenever Amon says something looks really good, it doesn't. But
okay, like I'm not a fan of the blue interior, no doubt. But like if you look at the seats, it seems like there's leather seats, and in the middle part is Alcantara.
Is it like a light blue or like a dark blue? Dark blue I can fuck with.
It's not a good color. I'm not saying it's a good color, but
oh boy,
you said blue.
Wrong channel. No, it's not blue.
You know how many blues
it's
there
like
are.
baby blue. It's not a good color. But
it's baby blue? That's horrible.
Yeah, look. Okay,
that's
ignore
ass,
the color.
dude.
Ignore the color. My point is, it's interesting that they're gonna fit like this kind of stuff in a car at this price range. Like, it seems like they have boost gauges, so I'm assuming it's turbocharged. Leather seats with Alcantara in the middle, fire.
That looks disgusting.
It looks disgusting. But like, if you were to like, here, I'll change the hue and saturation in Photoshop. But if you were to change the color of the blue,
You should have made it red.
Bad. I agree, but it wouldn't look bad, would it?
I don't know, man. There's
that's why I
very
asked.
few cars.
That's why I asked like what shade of blue, because that makes a difference.
Yes, there's very few cars that pull off blue.
Navy,
like
ignoring
navy
the
interior.
Ignoring the color of the interior. That's a good interior. At that price range. Actually, I don't know. Mazda's done some pretty good stuff with their MX. Like
this looks pretty standard Nissan.
Does it though?
Yeah. I mean, if
Nissan,
you've been on the new Altimas and Maximas, just stupid touchscreen in the middle, like it. I mean, look,
Dude, that's
here's
every
something that
car
ticks me
nowadays,
off. This is a Z, right?
Yeah, this is the new.
Where's the gear shifter?
This is probably the automatic though.
Okay, you're gonna give me an automatic with that stupid control pad thing, and you're still gonna give me
paddle shifters
an e-brake. So. Oh my god! Just why?
What do you mean?
Why do all that? Like I wanna grip a gear shifter from a car like this. It's supposed to be raw.
Well, what are your thoughts on the C63's gear shifter then?
I'm not very happy with it.
Okay, so I wanted
to look, even with modern Mercedes AMG cars with little touch pads and stuff, even with like the Lexus GSF and RCF having like, I've never been a proponent of that. Like, if you've looked at Porsche's new 911, like the gear shifter's smaller and it's way more technological than the previous generations, but it's still a gear shifter. Like they get that. Just this. I can't. Like my parents, their Durango has like a knob. More than
dude, yeah, you know there are Rams they're making nowadays that have a little dial to move.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. The dial.
Or
And my mom has more often than not.
Dials
They
are
have confused that for volume.
no
Dials
doubt
is
about
the
dials.
dumbest
Dials are
fucking
stupid.
thing I've ever seen.
Actually, no. What
That's
Honda
so-
does is pretty stupid too. Like where it's like the button, like you press like drive, park. I get it's mechanical, so you don't have to do that.
The Odyssey, right? The Odyssey, the new
I
Odyssey.
think it's the Odyssey.
Or
You press
2019.
drive, you press park, you press neutral. Like,
I had to drop one of those off at a. Actually, no, I was dropping off a customer's car, and we decided we needed to drive one because we were working on it. And I get in it, and automatically, like, you know where your hand goes when you get into a car, is to where that fucking gear shifter is. And then I'm like, looking, I'm feeling around. I was like, what the fuck is this? And then like I look on like the side next to the driver's side, there's buttons, and I was like, what kind of bullshit is this? Fucking buttons on a car. So then you have to like hit a button.
We probably
Mercedes
sound like
is
old
weird
men.
with it. Mercedes is weird with it too, where like they'll have the knob on the side to where you shift it, so it's a gear shifter, and it's like.
but it's like
okay, this
shaped
is-
weird.
Yes.
No, it's like the park is a button.
Yeah.
Park
yeah.
is a
Yeah.
button, but drive is something else. And I'm like, and like the place they put it, it's like, dude, I'm not driving a fucking truck. This is a sedan. Why is this over here? I don't understand.
As much as I love Tesla, their gear shifter's the worst ever.
What
dude.
is it? What
There's
is it? What is
Nothing
it?
worse. It's like a window wiper stock.
Oh
God.
my god.
It's a window wiper stock. It's the
Are you
worst.
serious?
I'm not joking. Wait,
Oh, so is it like?
I'm 90%
Is it
sure
like a
I'm
window
right.
wiper in like a Chevy where you like manipulate it like drive is like the farthest option,
Does
then
this
you
sound
like
like the
I think.
paddle
I'm not
shifter?
twirl it
If
back.
you can even consider. There was like one that had like shifter buttons on the stock. I don't remember. Was it the Dodge Caravan? It is like plus or minus
Yeah,
is
it
on
is
the
a stock.
stock.
It is a stock.
Oh my
Okay,
god.
I'm not stupid. Okay, good. Yeah, it's a stock. I didn't embarrass myself. It's a stock. It's pretty embarrassing. And I love Tesla, so it sucks that this is like what Tesla does. But
I don't know why
Just
you
what
love
can you do,
Tesla.
man?
Why
don't-
do you
okay,
love Tesla?
I don't love Tesla. I just respect.
Or do you just love E EVs?
Look, as a tech person, you know, I
Oh
love
Jesus.
I just love the bleeding edge of tech.
And I'm just a
And-
fucking grease monkey, right? Imad, is that what you're trying to say? You're a tech person, so in
No,
a way the EV
look,
is refined.
No. I think you admire tech in a way differently than I admire tech. That's what I'm trying to
Okay.
say. You
Okay.
admire it as a mechanic, as someone who works at a shop. You admire it in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that makes sense in your daily life, which would probably be around like working on it and like how easy. Like,
In many
because when we
people's
were talking
daily
about this
life.
earlier, you kept
In many
bringing up,
people's
like,
daily
topics like
life.
that. Huh?
In many people's daily life.
I'm not saying that's not a thing in many people's lives. All I'm saying is, in my life, when I view tech, I view it as just a step, and
I think
know
you
keep
enjoy
talking
it for
about
its
that.
novelty.
I guess. Look, I have like 13 keyboards that I've built, and like I like the idea of having
What a
something new.
fucking nerd.
I like having something new,
Nerd.
and that's awesome. I don't know why. And Tesla's awesome because they do that. I hate Elon Musk, but Tesla's awesome.
Why do you hate
As a
Elon
company.
Musk?
Dude, he's a piece of shit, man.
He's not a piece of
he's an
shit.
absolute piece of shit. Huh?
How so? Oh
Okay,
my
so
God.
when those kids
I
were
like
trapped in
Elon
the tunnel
Musk.
in Thailand, there was that white
Oh, I
guy
think I
who
heard
wanted to help
about
him out,
this.
and he's like, a white guy in Thailand trying to help out kids. I wonder what's up with that. Like, what the hell, dude? Like, it's just a guy wanting to help kids. He got mad
heard
because the
something
guy
about
said that
that.
his submarines to help the kids weren't going to work well enough. So
Oh
he
my
called the guy a pedophile. Or insinuated it, sorry. Like, what a shitty thing to do. Or launching a coup in a country just to have better cobalt mines for your cars. Like, what the hell, man?
That's electric vehicles for you.
No, it's Elon Musk for you.
You're,
Let's make this
you're
very
driving.
abundantly
You're
clear.
driving something that was stolen from indigenous peoples. That was
I don't
robbed
know that.
them of their natural resources.
But your phone uses cobalt too, so like I mean, it's not like you're any better. Like
We're talking about fucking electric vehicles, Ahmad.
they come from the same
Focus.
cobalt mines. I mean,
Focus.
they use them for the
Focus
same
on the
reasons
EV.
for lipo batteries.
Focus on the EV. Focus on the EV.
That's what I thought. But like speaking of like, what are some things as a mechanic that like affects you in your day-to-day life, like especially now, like stuff that gets out there.
The thing is that like
I don't know.
as far as affecting my daily life, Like I approach cars the way of a consumer, and like the thing is it all goes back to something that my dad told me when I first started doing this. He said, "Look, at the end of the day, you just sell metal. That's all you do. You're a metal dealer." Like, and that's kind of how I viewed it. And for me, like, the big thing is that, like, when I talk about when things are buried or when things are difficult to access, I'm not thinking of it even as much as like a physical, like, laborious thing, because I'm not the mechanic. I'm not doing it. The issue becomes the cost to the consumer, because at the end of the day, a lot of people, like, I have a friend and I was helping her find a car, okay, and she was going through the different, like, Carfax reports and whatnot, and she said something to me that I will never soon forget. She said, "What is an oil change?" Okay, I'm just gonna let that sink in. Like, this is the average consumer. We had one lady that got upset with me on the phone because I changed her Chevy Cruze with regular oil and not synthetic, even though I looked it up and it takes fucking regular. And I told her that, and she was like, "Well, the dealer says synthetic." And I'm like, you need to stop
take it to
being
the
a
dealer?
slave to the dealer. And, like, that's the thing. Like, I approach it from, how do I convey this information to my customer? Because to them, they don't understand. They don't understand what it takes. So for me, like, an ergonomic design is principal to a vehicle that is, applicable to people's daily lives. As far as, like, the EV goes, like, at the end of the day, people have to drive it. People have to, I think, will have to do repairs to it. And it goes back to what Asan was saying before about it is still in its early adapter stage. Like, we really don't know the true durability of an electric vehicle, but we have seen kind of the issues with them as far as, like, recalls and fires and things like that. And now, is it to be expected of an early adapter? Yes. I wouldn't expect it to be perfect. If it were perfect, then okay, it's perfect and I can understand it. But the issues from, like, a consumer standpoint, the arguments for it, this fetishization of an America that drives an EV happening in 15, 20 years is really what turns me off from the electric vehicle, I feel.
I think 20 years is like a pretty efficient, like, time frame.
I don't think so. Unless something radically happens to the average American's paycheck, I don't think so. Because we're living in a time where people are still driving 25-year-old cars and still buying 25-year-old cars. Back like 10, 15 years ago, people were driving cars that were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And then, that was kind of the norm. Now, I just see
Dude, we're getting to a point where people, like, can't afford cars. The dealerships last year were offering 0% 84-month terms. I'm like, who the hell was willing to finance a car for 7 years?
Fuck.
I think the issue is much bigger than the cars itself. I think
Well, yeah,
it gets
I
into
agree.
a massive geopolitical, not even just like national, but international issue of how we just aren't doing enough for the average day, right? Like,
and
guy,
see, that's where my argument before the podcast started came from. I'm okay with EVs settling in. I just think the timeline to push an early adopter technology this fast is a little bit inefficient, especially when we have companies who are looking into synthetic fuel alternatives and biofuel alternatives or compressed natural gas to keep the current technology running at a rate that is just as clean for the planet as an electric vehicle could provide. Granted, it's not going to be as efficient in the future, but for the time being, it is a much better step than just forcing EVs down everyone's throat, especially when most of the population can't afford it.
As far as cars go, as far as emissions, I mean, if you want to make it something about the environment, I believe that if people maintain their cars regularly, got all the work they needed to do done, that the emissions would be far less, because you have to take into account the fact that because cars have less fuel economy, and this is actually getting into the newsletter I'm going to be putting out this week about, decarbonizing your engine to increase your fuel economy, because at the end of the day, a lot of these engines that are just gunked up, trashed out, that takes a wear on the vehicle, and now you're just having this door of like cars being produced to meet demand and cars not going as far as they could if they were just maintained well. And the fact that they give off so many emissions because they're not maintained well. This is a fact, like, it's real that, cars that are not maintained well emit more than cars that are. Like, it is.
It's not even just maintenance. I feel like efficiency is a huge thing on the manufacturer side too. I've been saying this forever. Like, when they started making downsized performance variants of engines and then also adapting that into more economical cars, like basically smaller displacement plus turbocharger.
Of course.
It's like, that's not solving the issue. If anything, that's going to drive people to pick up more cars because these things become so inefficient. You have cars that are making effectively the same horsepower as their V8 or V6 counterparts, but they have to work harder to carry the same amount of curb weight and passengers. It's like, okay, well, that's going to result in more wear and tear. And if wear and tear happens on faster, that means warranties and everything that are being offered are going to become lesser. People aren't going to want to have to incur, manufacturers aren't going to want to have to incur the cost of maintaining these cars at higher mileages. And because of that, that passes down to the consumer, who's eventually going to come in after 3 or 4 or 5 years when they notice that their warranty's over, which is exactly what's happening. This is not just happening in the luxury market anymore. I feel like it's happening in the entire market. And they come and trade in that car and they pick up another one, which has an even smaller engine. It's even worse because it's riddled with technology that people don't understand. It's fantastic putting computers and such in cars, but people don't want to accept the reality that these computers are also rattling around. They're going through elements of nature. They're seeing the day-to-day.
They don't understand that, and that's why, like, I get on.
They treat it like an appliance. It's like, no, this is.
That's the thing about like Mercedes-Benz and BMW. It's like they put computers in the car for fuck all, and it's almost as if, the thing isn't even meant to be driven. It's as if it's just supposed to sit in your fucking parking, whatever.
It's either a jewelry piece or it's something that's gonna rob you, and I don't feel like that's how it should be. And this is my entire thing with electric vehicles, because I feel like electric vehicles could be a potentially very good answer for the planet. And everything that its proponents say, I have a hard time disagreeing with a lot of it. The main thing I disagree with, however, is affordability and time frame. Why is it being forced down on us so fast when we already have a technology that is over 100 years old that has the ability to be improved or transformed
and very cleaned and very clean.
It can be clean. And why aren't we focusing on that technology so that we at least give ourselves a buffer before we move into the electric vehicle era, which inevitably will happen, but make sure it happens where it doesn't widen income inequality or displace multiple people from being able to reach new locations or get to where they're supposed to go based off of infrastructure that's going to change around electric vehicle adoption because they weren't able to afford an electric vehicle, or make it extremely expensive to just own an ICE instead of coming up with an alternative fuel source to keep your ICE and keep it somewhat affordable while you're saving up or working towards getting an EV.
I don't know why we don't hear more about e-fuels. Like, why don't we talk about that? Like, why is
I don't do NASCAR, Porsche, Bosch. I mean, these guys have made such advancements.
The head of Porsche, I think, said something that was absolutely phenomenal.
Wait, why would Porsche say that though? They made, like, they're the ones out there making
the Porsche can, but see what happens with Porsche is they're espousing literally exactly what I just said. They made the Taycan, which, I mean, in many ways it has its faults, but it competes directly with the Tesla for a much higher price. But they also didn't change the other components of their lineup. They offer plug-in hybrids that are extremely high performance if you want, They also offer normal IC vehicles, and they've kept their motorsport line going. In fact, their motorsport line is probably one of their strongest motivations for looking into e-fuels and synthetic fuels in the first place, because they don't want to lose that. EVs just don't match up in the world of motorsports. They don't. There's a totally different engineering design to EVs that ICEs don't have to contend with, and it changes the center of gravity, changes the way these cars handle, and Porsche has more motivation than I assume a lot of car companies to keep their tradition of motorsport going, so they would naturally be looking into e-fuels. Why that's not talked about more is beyond me, because that could save so many consumers from having to make a financial blunder in picking up an EV, where, like I said earlier, there's no trialability, there's no observability yet. Like, I don't know which one to get. It's not like there's that much competition either. Like, it's either I get like the crappiest one with Chevy or Nissan, or I'm like forking out what someone who's maybe earning $100,000 to $200,000 a year picking up a Tesla, or I'm in the upper echelon of the range and I'm looking at Porsches. It's like, is that really what I'm looking at right now? Or maybe a Volvo Polestar, which is also ridiculously expensive.
Oh my god.
But look, like, the issue with e-fuels is, like, we're not there yet to be able to afford that either. Like, we can't pretend that, like, electric cars
I'm
are expensive
sure
and
it
that
will be
e-fuels are cheap.
expensive. I think e-fuels be very expensive.
They're more
And
expensive.
I think they'll lord it over ICE owners if EVs take off too fast, and it'll make it harder even more so, and because now you can't afford to keep your ICE and you can't afford an EV, because you want to try to go get synthetic fuels. They'll probably kind of like reserve it for the ultra rich who have sports cars, like, you know, you and I look at, or people who are involved in motorsports, and obviously
Then that's a
they
whole
can
different
afford
discussion then, because
but it's wrong, right? Like, I'm trying to propose a situation where e-fuels can maintain the balance of what we currently have while we work towards improving an entire infrastructure. But that's likely not what's going to happen, even though e-fuels, especially as Porsche is looking into it, is just hydrogen and carbon dioxide, which we have plentiful amounts of. It's just, I feel like if we spend as much money as we did into EV innovation, research and development, as we did into making the e-fuel process efficient, then maybe it could be cheap, and maybe by the time we got around to EVs being affordable, people would be,
or at least have
be comfortable with
options.
that.
At least
exactly,
have options.
Exactly.
I mean, it's
It
not
would let
one
the
or
rest of the
other.
manufacturers also catch up. I mean, it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world right now with how governments are stepping in, trying to. And I mean, my whole senior thesis in University of Texas was how much does government intervention actually affect the product model adaptation of electric vehicles around the world.
Oh my god,
And
radically. Are you kidding me?
government
This whole
government
goal is
intervention
just-
was actually the number one proponent. I mean, like, because if you look at the United States and Australia have probably been the laggards in instilling such things or such policies, and we're also the laggards in EV adaptation, whatever the word is. But the countries like France, Germany, England, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, China, the guys who actually have policies in place about this, I mean, sheesh. I'm not saying like they don't have as many drivers per capita as we do, but they do have a policy, and their adoption rate is exponentially higher than ours. So what I'm trying to get at is, if government can also subsidize or prioritize a way to keep these older cars on the road but keep them clean, so that the rest of the economy can catch up and the rest of the manufacturers can catch up and give people
but like,
clean,
you see the
competitive.
absurdity in that, right? Like, if countries have already adapted to taking care of EVs, and countries have now adapted to taking care of EVs and using EVs responsibly, and, you know, we have good adoption rates in, like, countries like, again, like you mentioned, like Sweden, Norway, Denmark. If we have good adoption there, and companies in those regions,
the problem is, like I
companies in
said, I
that
mentioned,
area,
is like there's not as many drivers per capita in those countries as there are in the United States.
I
The
get that, but
people
let me
who
make this
actually
point real
do
quick.
have the cars are probably much more affluent.
But let me make this point real quick, that if they're ready for adoption, other countries are ready for adoption, majority of in my mind, majority of westernized countries are already ready for adoption because majority of them are European countries that have good socioeconomic policies to deal with early EV adoption. Why should companies have to deal with making EVs and ICE cars at the same time? It seems unreasonable. It's going to have such high manufacturing costs to make both EVs and ICE cars, just because America and Australia are lagging behind.
I don't
That
think it's
seems
just
unreasonable to me.
it's not just America and Australia though. I think it's also a
I mean,
lot
of
of
course,
Europe.
but-
You're looking at the middle class consumer or the lower class consumer in Europe. They're not the ones driving EVs. And it's just because there's so much fewer of them, and that Europe is a much more of an urban terrain than the United States or Australia are, that you might not even necessarily need a
that's
car.
huge,
But
yeah.
you're also looking at factors like, sorry, I'm having a brain fart. You're looking at factors with EVs, like why hasn't adoption taken off in the United States or it has in other Western countries? I'm trying to also say that the technology to keep ICE cars like clean is possible. If we don't pursue that while we're trying to bring the cost, or at least make it more competitive in the world of EVs, I feel like we're doing a disservice to the middle class and lower class around the world who has to suddenly go and pick up an EV if they really do actually need a vehicle, by making it a law that says you have to do it in such X time frame or Y time
Again,
frame.
you see the absurdity with that, right? Like you're saying that, oh well, even if e-fuels aren't affordable right now, or even if whatever methods we have of maintaining ICE engines right now aren't affordable at the moment for adoption. Like, okay, so the big issue is companies cannot be producing both EVs and ICE cars at the same time. They can, but it's going to increase.
That's what I was trying to get to. That's where my brain farm was. Yeah, you're right, and that's what I was getting at. I think Audi's executive said this too. It's costing them more to retool though to go to EVs, and for almost very little beneficial. Sure, but it also doesn't hurt their bottom line, especially, and Shaf can attest to this, on the service side, if you're able to keep both on the road for a longer amount of time and have them both be just as clean. It doesn't.
That.
And
But
that's what I'm trying to say is, while
saying-
e-fuels are extremely expensive right now, and they will very likely be expensive, what I'm saying is I don't think there's a benefit in not focusing on bringing those processes to more cost-effective and more efficient ranges where e-fuels could be. I'm not saying that automakers have to focus on both, but I'm definitely saying that infrastructure should prioritize e-fuels, because right now it's asking too much of many crippling infrastructures around the globe to make such a radical switch.
But again, I don't get it. Like, your complaint is that EVs are going to cost a lot, but it's also going to cost a lot to have e-fuels. Like, you can't say that if we do production right now or R&D right now, it's going to get cheap in the future, because that was your issue with me talking about how EVs might get cheaper in the future. Like, you don't know if you can or not.
No, I definitely
can't
think
say that
I definitely think EVs are going to get cheaper. As more and
I
more
agree.
competition gets in the market, it's going to become cheaper. What I'm trying to say is you can't have governments forcing that process to pick up faster, because that's exactly the kind of thing that makes it expensive. Doesn't
Majority
matter
of it
how
is
much.
governments, though. Majority of it are companies.
I
Volvo
highly
announced
disagree.
that-
If you've looked at France, how they're incentivizing it, they penalize you with a very excessive tax if you buy an ICE, and they give you a subsidy if you buy an electric vehicle. But granted, even if you take the subsidy to pick up your electric vehicle, the electric vehicle still costed more than the ICE offering.
I get that, but at the moment, many companies have announced future plans of switching over entirely to EVs.
You're
If companies are switching over to EVs, whether or not countries are giving a specific timeline, it doesn't matter, because
But
the switch is gonna happen
what I'm getting
regardless.
at is, where did these announcements come from? Companies would not change their processes. Like, let's just be honest. This is the shareholders' principle. They would not change jack shit if it was already making them money, if there wasn't pressure from an entity such as a government that actually had the authority to step in and say, hey, regulation is coming, or something is coming that you have to change your practice. Like, there's no reason for these guys. It's not like they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. I mean, we can all go back to that study about how Exxon actually found out about, environmental damage and pollution way back when, and they were the ones that found that research, and then they were the ones who spent a multi-million-dollar campaign on covering up that research. They're not going to change without some intervention. And what I'm trying to nail at is, okay, fine, give them the chance to change, and sure, we can all go EV, but if you're going to spend the money on completely retooling everything and changing the infrastructure to adopt to EV, you should, for the short term, also spend money on making biofuels and e-fuels more affordable so that more people can keep their ICE cars and they can keep them clean for the environment while they work towards getting into an EV infrastructure, rather than forcing taxpayers and governments to foot the bill and subsidize all these charging stations and all sorts of new grid projects to maintain electric vehicles. That's the problem I'm getting at.
That's where I feel like I
don't
really
see an
take up
issue.
with you.
Sorry, what were you saying? Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's where I really take up with you, is like the idea of infrastructure and trying to implement what exactly entails an electric vehicle.
I feel like this discussion can only go forward if we get into the politics of it, which I don't think is necessary right now. I think the only way we can actually continue this conversation.
Yo, let me pull out my thesis paper real quick.
I feel like the only solution to this is a political solution, and you guys know where I stand. I know where you guys stand. Like it's we're gonna have a huge discussion about politics in a way that.
Not really.
I don't know.
I think it's just like looking at the numbers on the paper and how much the average American is willing to spend. We're looking at automotive data as well as, labor rates, how long people have these cars, what are they willing to spend, what are they buying right now, what is the American consumer buying? Because when it comes to cars, and I did some research on this in college too, is that the younger generation and the newer generation is not looking at vehicles as people did 30, 40 years ago as kind of like this thing to have and this, way to entry. They look at it as an expense. And as far as like the politics goes, the best thing to do is just look at the fact that for a lot of people it just isn't affordable, and to implement such a thing is just
I think it
unreasonable.
is possible, but there's political reasons why I believe it's possible.
Well, I think that just involves giving a lot of money and raising taxes.
I don't think it involves raising taxes. I think it involves
giving money,
having better forms of taxation.
So increasing taxes.
No, not necessarily. I mean, there's a huge. I mean, like, look, I'm not allowed to talk about this, but my CEO recently got arrested for dodging over $1 billion of taxes. Like, I think there are much more important things to talk about when it comes to taxes than just raising it for the average person. We can look at value-added taxes and stuff. Again, this is going to get super political, so I'm gonna talk about this. But
same.
Yeah, I think EV adoption is possible in the next 20 years.
Well, I think with if e-fuels, like we talk about e-fuels being expensive, but their implementation, I feel like, entails much less. Like, okay, let's say that an e-fuel requires certain mechanisms that are on the car. So did emissions, so did having a catalytic converter and an O2 sensor and those things.
Actually, Shaf, to that argument, e-fuel doesn't require any modification to the current vehicle.
No, I've heard it does. No, 100%. That is not true. I've heard it does.
I've heard the one Porsche Bosch are trying to come up with requires no tuning, no modification. You put it into the gas tank.
We don't even have the technology feasibly yet.
So, they're pretty dang close, dude. Actually, let me look up how close. I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing.
So then where's most of this issue of expense? Like, would it be expensive at the pump to have e-fuels as compared to buying a whole electric vehicle and charging it? And
they're partnered with Exxon and Siemens.
Interesting.
Yeah, they've got some backing behind this, so I guess someone heard me before we released the podcast.
Okay, so my question is that is most of the expense just going to come from people having to pay more at the pump?
That's kind of what I would think.
Like, where's the expense coming from? Because we've been talking about, and I've been hearing you guys talking about how expensive e-fuels are and comparing that expensiveness to an EV, but where is the expensiveness of an e-fuel? Is it the research? Is it the development? Is it
It's mostly like the
acquiring it?
processing of it, like in the vehicle. From
It's
my
the
understanding,
process.
it's
Here, let me
mostly
look
the
at
vehicle
Porsche's
processing.
here. Porsche's e-fuels are made out of carbon dioxide and hydrogen, are produced using renewable energy. The final result is a liquid that an engine will burn the same as if it was gasoline made from crude oil. But an e-fuel can be produced in a climate-neutral manner, at least in theory. This is on Car and Driver.
I'm reading the same one as you then.
Yeah. Synthetic fuel is cleaner and there's no byproduct. And when we start full production, we expect a CO2 reduction of 85%.
It doesn't like tackle the issue of it being completely carbon neutral.
It says it is.
It says 85%.
That's
No,
still
it's
a
just-
lot.
That's not entirely carbon neutral though.
It doesn't matter. That's still quite a bit.
I mean, I don't
more,
want to
and
get into
feel
chaos
like-
theory, but like 85%, like that's still a lot in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, no, reduction of 85%, so 15% output. And sure, you might say,
As
oh, that's a
opposed to what
lot.
you have.
Okay, yeah, as opposed to keeping us on the ICE path forever and not having EVs, 15% is good as we move towards EVs. That's probably what I'm trying to get at. If you can afford the EV, and this does become an affordable technology, because it looks like it has the backing of Porsche, Siemens, Bosch, McLaren, Audi. I mean, if they can make it affordable, then
I think they can make it affordable. I think if they can keep their business model and the way they've been doing business, because at the end of the day, e-fuel is competing with the EV, and from a business standpoint, if you want to adapt it, they'll find a way to make it cheaper. They will find
I
a way
think
to
the
make
other
the
thing that
e-fuel
we're
cheaper.
overlooking is, does the 85% reduction make the e-fuel or the synthetic fuel, whatever you want to call it, compete directly with the production carbon output of the lithium batteries that go in the electric vehicles?
Well, isn't that the heart of the argument for the electric vehicle and for governments wanting to implement it, other than purely political reasons? It's the idea of carbon neutrality and the environment and all this stuff. I think this puts e-fuels on the path to competition with the electric vehicle.
That's what I think. I mean, like, going back to it, I think EV's technology in terms of motorsport and everything eventually will far outpace what ICE cars can do, but we're not there yet.
Are we
And,
even close? Like, is that a question to be
we're,
asked?
we're kind of getting there. I mean, Tesla did come up with that plaid platform, whatever the hell it was, and Taken did.
But again, this is motorsports. Like, I'm
Yeah,
talking
it's
about
not
for the average consumer when it
for
comes
the
to
average
Model
consumer.
Y is
fuels.
supposed to have around 400 miles per.
If they could use synthetic
Gallon?
fuel and
PG?
like, okay,
I don't know.
let me just paint a picture for you. Okay, like you have
Never mind.
Bob.
Well, sorry, not
Bob,
PG. Sorry, total range. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
Bob works at
That is true.
McDonald's. Bob, that's it. Like, he works at McDonald's and he has a Corolla, and he's been told by 2035 that he has to pick up an electric vehicle. And
Wait,
if you've noticed,
okay, no one's doing that. No government's doing that. They're
Wait,
telling companies that they
some
can't make
some
anymore.
some governments are
which country's doing
actually
that?
saying
California
no
is literally
more.
going to ban the sale of gasoline cars. In
It's
like
not
the
just
next
the
banning the
sale
sale
that I'm
of
worried.
new
I'm not worried
gasoline
about banning
cars.
of the sale. I'm saying
What?
some countries are actually working towards getting gasoline-powered cars off the road within
Like,
30
which country?
years.
I've never heard of this anywhere.
Let's look up a sub.
By 2030, that's an absurd statement. I think they might be referring to new cars. But I don't think they're talking about like your Camry from like 2016 isn't they like banned from driving. That's an absurd statement. That's an authoritative thing. Like that's absurd. You have the right
I
to
don't
own
think
that,
I don't think
but-
it's going to be the United States. Okay.
I don't think it's any country, if I'm being honest. That is such an absurd thing. Like, I don't know why a country would do that. That would destroy their economy. Like, then essentially, you just have like $20,000 of metal just sitting there, that equivalent in the government's eyes to like drugs. Like, what? Like, that's a destruction of the entire economy. Like, all those cars over the past like 100 years, 200 years, 150 years are just destroyed. Like, there's no point to that. Like, that it would be absurd to ban an ICE car from existing or driving.
No, I think you might be right.
It's such an absurd statement. I don't think that's true. I think it might have been like a headline, like misrepresenting a fact. I don't think it's feasible or like it's logical to ban ICE cars from existing or driving on the road. That's absurd.
Okay, so it says here, I'm on Quartz. Copenhagen Mayor Frank Jensen wants the city to end all new diesel cars starting next year. This was in 2018. Last December, Paris, Madrid, Athens, and Mexico City said they would remove diesel cars and vans by 2025. Norway will phase out conventional cars by 2025, followed by France and the United Kingdom in 2040 and 2050, respectively. Yet, despite all these commitments, no country has actually passed a law prohibiting anything as of yet. So, maybe
again,
they've just
spoken.
spoken.
That's the production. That's production.
Yeah.
They're talking about
No,
production.
so I remember when I was doing my research, there are some countries, and I don't think they have passed it in effect as a law, but there are some countries that straight up want to phase out ICE cars.
It might have been a proposal.
I think it
would
might have
never
stopped
get
there.
passed. It would never get passed. That is so absurd.
It's
That's like
still
saying if
interesting
your
though,
house doesn't have solar panels, we're
right?
destroying
You gotta
it. Like,
demolish
that's absurd.
it. Yeah.
That's absurd. Like, I don't know, but yeah, like
It's going to be an
Oh.
interesting road for sure. But anyway,
agree.
I think we're like at the hour 5-minute mark. Are we going to cut
half
any
of
of
it's
this out?
been EVs, huh?
Are we going to cut any of this out, or is it going to be this long?
Shit, dude, screw it. Let's just run it all.
All right. Well, I think we should end it there. So
Mhm.
check in with us whenever we make episode 2, which is whenever we make it, and we will
Do
be
you guys want
talking
to start
about
doing
new
this on the
developments.
weekends?
Yeah, we should probably
Huh?
do this every week, on the weekends.
Yes.
So
I
that was
want to do
thinking.
this. I
just
want to
wanna
do
get
this in
something done real
person.
quick.
Just bring a laptop, bring your microphone, bring your Focusrite, sit around a table. We can all do this in person. It'll be a lot more fun,
Mhm.
I feel like it would be better. to do
and then
in
we can film
person.
it too.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Maybe like JRE.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway.
Okay, so
Thank
yeah.
you guys so much for tuning in to our podcast, our very first one here on Ninjas and Idiots, and we will see you hopefully next week.
What day? Give them a day. Next Saturday?
What day?
Next
When
Saturday.
should we post
hopefully.
this one? Saturday?
Shoot, I don't know.
Alright. Let's have Saturday as our.
Well, no. Hold on. If we're going to be doing the podcast on Saturday, we can't upload it on a Saturday. We'd have to upload,
We'll upload it on
like,
a Sunday or Monday.
I
or
mean, Ahmad, is
Tuesday.
that feasible? What's feasible if we record on like a Saturday?
I'll edit this today. I've automated most of it. I'll edit this today, see how it comes out. I think Monday upload would be better. I think Sunday I might have a render out, but Monday would be a better upload schedule.
Fantastic.
Okay.
All right,
Sounds
gentlemen.
good.
We will see you next time, and for our listeners, thank you, and until next time.